Why is it that during a cost of living crisis, the number of parents choosing to send their children to fee-paying schools is increasing? The Daily Telegraph reported today that 35.5% of Aussie kids now attend private schools. That's the highest proportion since 2002, and it's twice the average of OECD countries. Well, experts interviewed by the Telegraph said it's because of government funding and because parents are particularly aspirational. In other words, private schools are popular because the fees are offset by government money, and migrant families in particular like the prestige of private schools. We can debate that in a moment, but let me give you a couple of reasons why I think private schools are particularly popular. Firstly, parents want to send their children to a school that reflects the values they teach at home rather than undermines them in the classroom. When you talk about immigrant families, many of them are religious, socially conservative, family orientated, and so they're sick of progressive ideas being pushed upon their kids when they go to school. Second, parents want to send their children to schools where there's discipline and there's consequences for poor behaviour. You often don't get that in the public system. And finally, I think parents like to send their children to a school where the emphasis is on academic achievement rather than being distracted by progressive ideas such as, respectful relationship courses, which a lot of parents rightly believe is just a Trojan horse for teaching different sexual orientations and gender theory. It's not that hard for public schools. If they want a greater share of the market, enforce discipline, stop undermining socially conservative values, and focus on reading, writing and arithmetic rather than social engineering, Caleb.
I think you're right. And it's interesting to see that in a cost of living crisis, as you mentioned at the top, the number of people who are willing to stump up the money to send their kids to a private school is increasing. I went to a public school. It didn't do me any harm. I don't think so anyway. I think I've come out reasonably well.
We'll talk later.
You said that and there was just silence.
I know. I didn't expect anything less.
Pause for affirmation. None forthcoming.
I'm sure at home you're far more sympathetic to me. Bugger these two. But I managed to stave off the left-wing propaganda that was being shoved down my throat. I do remember a couple of assignments that came back to me with notes from lefty teachers on them, critiquing my political slant on things. But I'm sure that may well be the same in a lot of private schools as well. I agree with you that there is probably a trend of people wanting to send their kids to a school where they feel they will get a more wholesome education in terms of their values, but even Catholic schools now are starting to get some of this lefty rot into them because ultimately there's only a certain pool of teachers you can employ from, right? And a lot of those teachers who all went to the same universities all think the same way. You can fiddle around the edges, but it is infiltrating those private schools now. I think it's more to do with the quality of the education that kids are receiving. But heck, where can you send your kid now without having any kind of lefty indoctrination? I'm not sure it's possible.